Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're doing something a little bit different from my normal videos where you typically see me. This time it's just my voice and gameplay recorded from some of my favorite games. And speaking of favorite games, that's what I want to talk about today. Specifically the idea of replaying your favorite games. Now for some that seems like an impossible idea because you might be like me and have dozens if not hundreds of unplayed games in your backlog. Maybe you have a family, a career, and dare I say, other hobbies. So the idea of replaying a favorite game might be considered a waste of your time because of all the other games you quote unquote have to play. Well, today I want to challenge that perspective as I've found replaying my favorite games to be incredibly beneficial for a variety of reasons. Now, as the title might have you believe, I'm not actually serious about never playing new games, but more so to give yourself permission every once in a while to sprinkle in a replay or several replays of games you've loved for years. So in this video, I want to take you through 5 specific reasons I replay my favorite games and why I think you should consider doing the same. Now the first reason is because replaying your favorite games can bring a sense of comfort and nostalgia, especially during difficult times. It's like revisiting an old friend who always knows how to make you feel better. Turning on The Office or some other familiar sitcom or movie when the other hundreds of options across all streaming platforms don't sound appealing. Or maybe just ordering the same thing over and over again from your favorite restaurant. Early last year, I got really sick in January and my wife was traveling for work, so I felt really crappy and I also kind of felt isolated. Playing the latest and greatest game just didn't feel right, so I started a new file in Dark Souls Remastered. It might sound crazy to some that I can find comfort in such a difficult game, but those opening 8 to 10 hours of Dark Souls really are a comfort for me. Almost like I can play without thinking. I always know where to go next, and I know the best places to farm souls and level up quickly. It's because I've done it before, countless times. Coming back to the Firelink Shrine alone is a sense of comfort, even though the music that plays there gives you a feeling of loss or hopelessness. And I've often found the Soulsborne games to be that strange dichotomy. On initial playthroughs, there are bosses that make you feel hopeless. You bang your head against the wall in frustration. But once you learn their patterns, overcome and defeat them, you feel incredibly accomplished. Maybe more so than any other game or series. Then, on repeat playthroughs, those bosses that once scared you seem no more challenging to take down than a Goomba in a Mario game. Yet taking them down is still as satisfying as ever, only now in a more comforting and familiar way, as opposed to some mountain-sized problem you've overcome. Even if I don't finish a game like Dark Souls on a return visit and dip out after those 10 hours, that's fine. I still got my Dark Souls fix and enjoyed replaying a favorite game. It's a comfort and oddly nostalgic, even for a game that released not too terribly long ago. Earlier in the year, I released a video sharing my backlog goals and how I often struggle with decision paralysis when tackling my backlog. With so many new games being released nowadays, not to mention services like Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, and Switch Online, it can be overwhelming to decide which one to play next. That's not to say that any of those services are inherently bad. I think we can all probably point to one or several of those services and say, we've discovered games because of them. But I think in the absence of any self-imposed guardrails or specific gaming goals you create for yourself, selecting a game to play out of a pool of 300 plus can become less of a luxury and more of a challenge. Now I know we're in a privileged position to have all these options and it's a first world problem, don't get me wrong. But part of me does miss the days when getting a new game was an event as a kid. More than that, you didn't have access to YouTube, articles sharing top 50 games, or top 10 videos when you were out and about shopping with that birthday or Christmas money. You largely had to rely on the box art, a back-of-the-box description, and your gut. Nowadays, we have all the gaming information in the world at our fingertips, and we also have endless options. It can all just be a bit overwhelming at times. Again, let me know down in the comments below if I'm alone in this thinking, but I really don't think I am. And it sounds ridiculous saying this, but gaming at the end of the day is a hobby. There isn't meant to be stress tied to it, unless you're trying to get the platinum in Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair and cannot beat that final level. That kind of stress. Joking aside, sticking to your favorites removes this decision paralysis and lets you enjoy gaming without the stress of making a choice. For anyone in the YouTube gaming community, it can be difficult not to get trapped into thinking you've got to keep up with everyone else when it comes to playing new games at or near launch. Even if you don't make videos or record a gaming podcast, which kind of inherently creates a feeling or need to always be playing a new game to share with your audience, there's often pressure to keep up with the latest games. I remember last year when Final Fantasy VII Rebirth released, nearly every one of my friends was playing it, but I wasn't really in the mood to start it yet. I was still kind of craving something comfortable and familiar coming away from Dark Souls Remastered. So I started a new file in Final Fantasy 15. Yes, a game that seems to be regarded as one of the worst mainline games by fans is actually one of my personal favorite Final Fantasy games. So if the haters were waiting for their opportunity to pounce in the comments, here it is. But jumping back into this world was such a joy. A bunch of friends on this road trip of sorts, you're tasked as Noctis to collect the royal arms, which are basically weapons of past kings, and the way you travel is what I think so many didn't like, I personally loved. Getting into the car, the regalia, to drive to your next side or main quest always excited me. Even when the game gave you the option to fast travel, I often wouldn't and would bypass that option because it forces you to pause and think about what just happened in the story, or try to make sense of where the story could be going next. Now, I'll be the first to admit that the story can be a bit all over the place at times, but at its core, it's about the bond of a brotherhood. Friends confronting adversity head on and remaining loyal to each other throughout it all. Exploring that open world instead of the one in Rebirth, at least at that particular time, is what I needed. Getting into the regalia, driving down the road even if I didn't have a destination, and just listening to some of my favorite music from all Final Fantasy games was just such a mindless but comforting exercise. Sometimes that's what you need. Even when everyone else has and is playing with the new shiny toy, by replaying your favorite games, you can enjoy gaming at your own pace without feeling the need to keep up with everyone else. Even if you've played a game multiple times, there's always a chance you'll discover new areas, secrets, or story elements you may have missed before. Taking the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim as an example, arguably my favorite game of all time, and a game where I've created well over a dozen characters, I've beaten the main story several times, and quite honestly probably have over 500 hours played across different consoles and game versions. Even with all that, I can still discover new things because there's so many different ways I can approach the game. Normally, I'm a wood elf and make my way through the game in a stealth-like fashion using a bow and arrow, but maybe next time I build a mage character and only allow myself to use spells. Doing that almost forces myself to experience the game in a different way, and I'll inevitably discover new things about the game because I'm tapping into gameplay mechanics that I probably haven't used before. Another way to discover new things about the game is if you focus on trophy collecting or achievements. I think these in-game rewards have the pros and cons, and you can watch some of my trophy-related videos to hear more about my feelings collecting them specifically, but I think there's much more good than bad that comes with them. Coming back to Skyrim, maybe your playstyle is beat the main story and then just explore the open world. But if you want the platinum, you'll need to complete the Dark Brotherhood, the Thieves Guild, and Mage Guild questlines. You'll need to pick 50 locks, bribe people, chop wood, and cook food. The point being that you'll do things you wouldn't normally do when playing the game, which could very easily further your appreciation for the game even more. I know for me, especially when it comes to open world games like Skyrim, the more recent Assassin's Creed games, even the more recent Final Fantasy games, going for the Platinum Trophy has always further deepened my love and appreciation for the game, its lore, and everything that the game has to offer. Whether it's taking a different morality path in an RPG like Knights of the Old Republic or Fable, using a different character build in a game like Skyrim, or just seeking out trophies and achievements no matter what game it is, all of these things can make a familiar experience fresh, exciting, and new again. Now, this last reason shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Instead of spending money on new games, replaying your favorites is a cost-effective way to enjoy gaming, and you're getting much more value out of the games you already own. I recently rolled credits in Hogwarts Legacy, which I absolutely loved, and I'm more than confident it'll be a top 10 game for me this year. But I'm going to return to it later this fall as I begin to develop my top 10 to do exactly what I've described earlier. Explore and discover new things, clean up on some trophies. It'll also help to curb my decision paralysis deeper in the year, and it's also a comforting, cost-effective way to just keep enjoying games. And I also love revisiting shorter, more bite-sized games that can be just as comforting. I played a short hike back in 2020 when there was so much chaos and noise going on around us with the pandemic and social unrest. Playing that game then was a 2-hour, joy-filled escape where I wandered this island, made friends with other goofy characters, and climbed a mountain to be able to make a phone call. It's still such a relaxing game to return to and play, again, even if I don't have the intentions of rolling credits again. I don't think anything I've said in this video was all too groundbreaking or new, but I thought it was an appropriate topic to cover when I see so many others, myself included, wrestling with decision paralysis and often treating this hobby as this thing we have to do while almost keeping up with the Joneses. Beat a game, move on, buy the newest game, beat it as quickly as possible, and move on to the next. I think it's important to not worry about what everyone else is doing and what everyone else is playing, or even how many games we might have unplayed on our own shelf. Sometimes I think instead it's perfectly fine and almost necessary to put the new games or unplayed backlog games down and just replay some of our absolute favorites. If you enjoyed this different style of video, definitely let me know down in the comments section below, and let me know if you'd want to see more of these types of videos going forward. But I want to thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.